Welcome back to the Future Food Tech podcast series. My name is Jet, Startup Partnerships Manager at Future Food Tech, and a very happy 2022 to you all. Now, before I introduce our guest, I want to set the scene for today's interview, which is centered around neuroscience. Now, you only have to do a short web search to learn that neuroscience is, in its simplest form, the study of the nervous system. However, with its multiple branching parts in physiology, anatomy, molecular biology, and computer science, where does food fit into all of this? Well, to help us unravel the mysteries of this conundrum, I'm extremely excited to welcome to the virtual stage Mario Ubiali, the founder and CEO of Thimus, an Italian company who use cultural neuroscience to better understand the complex nexus of foods and humans. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Mario.
Hello, Jen, and thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Well, Happy New Year to you as well. I guess I first became curious about Thimus after seeing an image of someone eating a piece of food whilst wearing what looked like a futuristic headset. And whilst this image was at first a little strange, even though I play a lot of video games, after doing some research, it actually makes a lot of sense when you break it down and consider the important role that our emotions play when it comes to food. So I guess firstly, can you tell us more about how your technology and this headset specifically works? And secondly, why you're leveraging neuroscience to better understand the vital relationship between humans and food?
Well, Jed, I think the question really already starts with the right food, because you are talking about food and emotion. So our technology, and specifically that headset that you might have seen in some pictures, is just one of the many potential versions of a technology that taps into brain activity and is actually able to record live brain signal as humans experience food and beverage. Now, why is that important? And why is neuroscience coming to the rescue when it comes to better understanding humans and food? Is because up to the present time in human history, we certainly have been very much aware of the importance of food in our nurturing and emotional development and the cultural significance and all of that complexity. And ultimately, we also have always been aware that all of that is happening right here, right? It's happening in our brain. So this is the first time in history that you can actually obtain very good quality real-time signal from the brain as humans experience food. And that's where Thimus is doing work, right? We come on the scene because of that, to try and open up a door onto a domain that has always been secluded and away from access in terms of understanding it. And this is a good combination of technological advancements. It's a great combination of that. It's a combination of ability to process huge amounts of data, which is something that is very typical of the present moment. It hasn't been for the longest time. And last but not least, we do live in an age where everything is changing around food, right? And so we come into play because we help partners and customers out there better understanding ultimately through this kind of technology, through the ability of reading live signal from the brain, what is it exactly that makes food okay for humans.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I guess we'll jump on to kind of that partnership piece you mentioned in a moment. I wanted to kind of go through the event which is coming up in March, because in San Francisco, during the interactive Taste Lab sessions, you'll actually be measuring the brain responses of select attendees to specific foods in real time. Now, many of our attendees will likely be watching this, so why should they consider getting involved in this session? But also, what will you guys be hoping to learn from the results?
Well, every time you do a demo of the technology, you always run this little bit of a risk of it just being it for show. But we decided to go ahead and bring that to that kind of stage because, of course, we do know that the future food tech kind of community is an amazing one. So it's a gigantic opportunity for us to showcase this ability. And so what we're trying to showcase is how robust, flexible, and able is this technology and platform to actually capture insights from brain processes of humans going through food experiences. And what we're hoping to show even live is how you go through this series of, like, it's a chain of events in a data pipeline, which sounds very complicated, and to a point maybe it is, but ultimately we're willing and able to be showcasing an ability to start from the complex activity of the brain and break it down to something that is tangibly readable by anyone. It doesn't really require a neuroscience background at all. And that's the beauty of making neuroscience available to companies right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, and you mentioned, let's move over to the discussion around, partnerships. I think they're certainly an integral part of both, our events, but also the industry as a whole. Your product is understandably unique. It represents a niche market. What role do commercial partnerships play in enabling you to both amplify, what you're doing to more of a global audience, but also to scale your technology?
Well, that's a great question, because it actually taps into one of the challenges for any startup company, any company that is trying to grow. My initial answer to your question, Jerry, is partnerships will play an even bigger role, as they have already played a great role in our development through time. And I wouldn't want to make this too boring and long, but I would want to at least say that there are different levels at which we're seeking partnerships and activating partnerships around the world. And 2022, and being with you guys on board with the Future Food Tech Summit in San Francisco, and then subsequently maybe even in New York City, what we're looking at partnerships that could actually, I want to say, empower us and help us. Yes, disseminating on a commercial level, which is kind of important, but at the same time, it's the most relevant partnership that we're seeking right now is for early adopters to jump on board with this platform and help us cater even better to the needs of the larger sort of needs of the industry and the world out there in food innovation. But I also want to really say that we're very excited. There are on the horizon partnerships that we will be announcing very soon, and some that we have recently announced. They go more in the direction of R&D. They go more in the direction of let's put together knowledge so that everyone can actually elevate the debate and the game when it comes to making the food of the future more human. We often use that expression. We're seeking partners who can understand what that terminology means. What does it mean to make the future of food more human? Well, it's a long conversation, but that's the spirit. We're seeking like-minded companies and partners who are willing to use neuroscience to design the food for the future with humans in mind, I would guess.
Yeah, well, I want to dive a little deeper into that, because I think that's really interesting from an R&D perspective. But do you guys have any kind of, I guess, recent examples or case studies that you've, I guess, worked with an industry partner to better understand their needs using cultural neuroscience? And I guess, if you did, are there any opportunities that this created for that partner?
Oh, absolutely. There's a few examples that would spring to mind, but I think one of the most straightforward in terms of the advantage that this approach can actually bring to a partner is a recent project in the oat meat space. And well, needless to say, oat meat space has a lot of spotlights sort of turned on and focused on what's going on there. And needless to say, you look at the numbers, you look at the contradictions, you see it's coming, it is coming. I don't think anybody is denying that there is definitely alternative proteins in general and oat meats specifically are going to be a mandatory route if we, amongst others, of course, if we want to look at the future of food. Everyone in that space is now tackling the issue of, okay, technologically, there is money, we're developing solutions, but when it comes to the end of the line and that thing is in a dish in somebody's plate, sometimes there seems to be a disconnect. So in a recent project, our technology was very useful in making efforts to design a product all down to the tiny details of texture and flavor that would play well with humans in a real life, naturalistic experience of that kind of food. What it means in practical terms, Jed, is we were actually studying how the brain would respond second by second as people were putting bites of this product in their mouth and chewing through it, because that would give our partner an in-depth, unprecedented look at what's going on. At what point in the experience people would say, this texture is creating me discomfort or comfort. Am I attracted? Am I disengaged? Am I thinking too much? Knowing that is helping and really giving a very active feedback into product development and making that product ultimately more human in that sense, which I think will play a determinant role in the success of these solutions. If we really want to have this as a solution, amongst others, which is going to impact the planet, humanity, the future of us as a whole, right? We do have to make sure they're going to be successful. They become a habit. And the only way to make them become a habit, guys, is not going to be just the messaging, and it's not going to be just the marketing. These things need to really be catered to human emotion and fulfillment. So they need to taste good, and they need to come to humans in a form that humans can recognize and embrace. And this is where really I think Thimus shines.
Amazing. I guess, I'm fascinated by this discussion around, I guess, branching out into different areas within food tech as well. And I guess from a commercial standpoint, future food tech really does open the door to alternative proteins, as you've mentioned, personalized nutrition, ingredient innovation, just to name a few areas. What kinds of companies, or I guess other areas within food tech as a whole, do you see an opportunity for your technology to really innovate, alongside alt protein?
Well, I want to say that I'm largely basing my answer on current experiences, and maybe that's a mistake. Maybe I should be more creative with my answer here. But let's start from what we know for a fact. Certainly, we're constantly seeking growth in the direction of ingredients and flavors companies, because that's a very interesting segment in the food value chain, and that's usually certainly companies who deeply understand the dynamics of researching deeper into human acceptance for different choices which are made in the very early stage of food creation. We're quite active in CPG's kind of space, in that space. So, it doesn't really mean that if you can work with ingredients, you don't want to work with the finished product. And maybe cultural neuroscience can be extremely useful when it comes to helping CPGs evaluating launch of products in different markets and cultures, because it really goes straight to the point, which is answering the question about how people will be inclined or not inclined to embrace a certain product in a certain market. But last but not least, I would say we're extremely interested in talking to those brilliant startups out there. So that's a space that we have been talking to quite intensively, also thanks to our presence, for example, at MISTA in San Francisco, which is an ecosystem where a lot of innovation is happening. I want to say my general comment about that is that the world of food startups is kind of a very interesting, challenging, but at the same time slippery kind of mountain to climb, because you either go and talk to the guys who really have been very well funded at this stage, and then you can talk about working. And in fact, I have to bite my tongue because I'm not allowed to make names, but we have been working for very prominent names in that kind of space, very, very well funded, very well developed startup companies in the food space, very successfully working with them. I would love to find ways to do more work for the up and coming guys. Sometimes they have budgeting limitations. I think in the future, our disseminated presence across the globe will actually provide them with an opportunity to tap in our services for a much more affordable kind of budget expenditure, because we're also looking at optimizing the way we can deliver our services. And so the large sort of step with you guys in San Francisco will sparkle a little more of that conversation. How can we help the up and coming startups?
Amazing. I'm fascinated by startups, as you know, so very much on board. What's next for you guys in 2022 and beyond as well? What can you tell us?
Wow, there's a lot coming. Very excited to say what's next for us is, number one, we are now really putting the finishing touches on completing a series of agreements that would put us on the map in more than one place internationally. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is that even though we're still a growing and small company, we are truly convinced that having a strategic series of partnerships in several places in Europe, in the Middle East, in North America will eventually, and in Asia, of course, will eventually provide us with a gigantic platform when it comes to not only networking and finding more commercial outlets. I am very convinced that the strength of what we're going to be doing by disseminating our device in 2022 and 2023 is going to lie into a very determined ability to collect an unprecedented amount of data across an international platform. So what's next for us is to put in place the infrastructure, both as a company, as a team, as a network that will make us, in the early months of 2023, the company that will have the largest repository of neurophysiological data on humans and food. That's our very ambitious but very realistically within grasp goal. So that's what's really next for us. Then there's a number of other implications to this, but I think bigger picture, that's what's next for us.
Sounds pretty good. And I guess finally, how can our network get in touch if they'd like to know more?
Oh, well, I think the best way to get in touch with us is to look for us on the internet in terms of our website, which is very easy to tap into because it's our company name, thimus.com, thimus.com. You go on that, there's a form to contact us. There's a lot of access to information. There are ways to do that. I am on LinkedIn. Most of our staff is on LinkedIn. Look us up on LinkedIn as a company. Go through that, very easy to do.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time. You've been very generous with your time. I know you're a busy man and 2022 is very busy for you, but I look forward to getting wired up to this device in San Francisco in March and finding out more. But for the moment, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
You too. Take care.